Welcome to the 3Haunted podcast, where we bring you all things horror, supernatural, folklore, mythology, and all things that go bump in the night.
What's up, everybody? This is your co host, Ashley Lunar Goddess, Gorilla Girl filmmaker and horror loving cinephile. I'm just your average podcast producing badass.
I'm John Thomas. Some would say that I go a little too far with my love of all things horror, paranormal, and meta, but I say, talk nerdy to me, and I'm all yours.
What's up, ghouls, gals, and all of our sacred pals out there? In today's episode, we'll be discussing sacred medicine, the shamanic path, and the commodity of these within the New Age era. Joining us in this very important conversation is special returning guest Dominique Isis. Welcome back, Dominique.
Yay! Hi! I'm so excited to be here again. Thank you so much for the invitation, the trust, and the ask, because I think it's such an important conversation to have in the times that we're in right now.
Absolutely. And I really appreciate you coming on.
Thank you.
Again. Sorry, John.
Right? No, you're good. I was gonna say I also think it's really cool that we had you on in January, and here it is December, and we're kind of starting the year and closing the year that way. So.
Oh yeah, that's kind of cool. That is actually really neat.
I think it might have been the exact dates too, but I could be wrong.
Is it? Right. Okay, that would be insane.
Let me see. Don't kick me if I'm wrong. Let's see. January 27th, we had you on. And now here we are, December 27th.
No, okay.
What are the odds of that?
What? Okay.
That's funny.
That's I don't know. That's like a rites of passage right there on its own.
I think there's something sacred in there in and of itself.
No, it's actually pretty incredible because it's not planned at all, and it just happened this way. So I don't believe in coincidences. That's amazing.
That's so great. Yeah, we started it with you, and we're finishing it 27th.
Yeah.
What's special about 27? Anybody know?
No, I mean, I can break down 2 and 7 for you, but I don't know about 27.
Yeah. I mean, it's both of those combined.
I know, it's insane. I mean, the only thing I can say about 7 is, we talked a lot about Toltec shamanism and dreaming before, and the number 7, I don't know if I mentioned or, I doubt you guys necessarily remember, but the number 7 is what actually allows us to connect to moon phases. So I don't know, we're in a full moon right now.
And I love the moon. You see how amped I get with the moon? Actually, the full moon, I don't know if you guys are in tune with the moon or affiliate with that in any way, but this full moon this month for me has been pretty powerful. I've felt it more than the other ones the past few months. So it's been exciting. I didn't even have to check. I have a moon phase app on my phone. I didn't even have to check it. I was just like, full moon's here.
Your body was ready. Yeah, I could agree with that.
What does it do for you? What's different from a full moon phase than any other phase?
I don't know. Honestly, I'm trying to think because it's more of an intuitive feeling inside of me. And it switches. So when I was younger, the full moon, I would be more amped. And the new moon, I'd be so tired, that reset, that recharge, and I would sleep a lot. And as I've become an adult, it's actually flipped for me. So the closer I get to a full moon, I'm usually more tired. And the new moon, I'm more I can't sleep. I am wide awake. I know what's going on. For this month, though, this has been a little different because I have been tired, which I'm okay, full moon, but I feel the energy is radiating more, if that makes sense. Yeah. It feels like she's almost talking to me during the day too.
Yes.
I'm I feel you.
This elder that is native to the lands here where I'm currently living actually told me that women tend to either bleed with the full moon or the new moon, and that according to this is what she said to me, according to what you need at the time is what you receive. So if you are feeling really lethargic or sleepy during a full moon, that's because right now that's like what your body's asking for. So it's good to tune in and listen to that and like be aware so you can give your body what it needs so that in the next cycle it like repairs the way it needs to. So it has like full amount of energy for like the next cycle coming in.
That makes sense. I listen to the moon. I'm like, if I'm sleepy, I sleep.
Yeah, I know. It's really interesting.
It's just a pain when it's the new moon because then I can't stay up all night. Like I will wake up at 1, 2, 3 a.m. I'm finally like, screw it. I'm awake until 5 and then I sleep again for an hour or two. And I'm like, all right, moon, you can't do this to me. I have responsibilities.
Yes, it's very good for the men because I actually learned too that men also have cycles. They may not actually like see it the way that women see it, but men actually go through hormonal changes too in their own way in their male physiology. They go through changes and they feel the moon too in different ways. But I was just saying it's really good for men to be aware because then they know how to show up for their partners too, consciously.
I don't know if I feel affected by the moon. I think the big thing that happens with me when I know that there's a full moon, I definitely wake up at 3 and 4 in the morning
Hmm.
a lot,
Yeah.
and I don't know what that's about.
You're a werewolf.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, that would be pretty cool, but probably not in real life, I guess. Maybe not that cool.
So, Dom, you were coming on to talk about a lot of things, but one of the main topics is sacred medicine. So, what exactly is sacred medicine for people that don't know?
Yeah, no, it's a really, really in-depth topic. For a lot of very specific reasons. I'm not going to be saying full names of the medicines unless you really have questions, and that would be something to talk in privacy about. But when I say sacred medicine, I am talking about medicine that does have psychoactive properties in it that come from the jungle and sacred places around the world that you would drink or take these medicines in order to have a spiritual experience that is very expansive to your conscious mind and allows you to be more in what's called spirit form in order to receive healing or messages that come down in order for you to heal your physical body or what is going on in your day-to-day physical life. And there are several. One that I think I can name and just normally would be psychedelics such as like mushrooms, but I'm even talking about more in-depth medicines that are very protected by shamanic lineages that come from areas like Peru, Ecuador, Chile, Mexico, these kinds of places.
I have a question about mushrooms specifically. So, microdosing has been kind of a bigger thing, especially I think here in Colorado. But what about that versus like, a full on, heavy dose versus that? Like, do you know any kind of like the advantages or disadvantages for something like that?
Yeah. So with that particular medicine, I'm not like as adverse as others, but I have been learning quite a lot just being somebody who is in a space of learning to become a ceremonialist and studying this part of the mind and physiology and our psychosis and our spirituality. I do know what I have understood from many studies is that microdosing is really helpful for people that have postpartum depression or depression and anxiety and deal with this on a day-to-day, because what it does is allows for more room to take space in the brain. And this is through your neurotransmitters and the connection between yourself and your mind and how you're visualizing or perceiving something in your life. What taking microdoses helps you do is expand that perspective. And that's why it helps someone with depression, because when someone is really, really depressed, if you really think about that state of being, it's a very narrow-minded way of thinking, right? It's very like, this is the way that I'm seeing my life, and it causes me to feel this type of way. But what mushrooms allows you to do is expand the possibilities of what's happening in your interior world. So it kind of gives you this like space and room to kind of think about things and contemplate things in a different way that can help you produce a different path, so that you can see that there's a way out of the depression, instead of just numbing yourself with pharmaceuticals
Right.
or this kind of thing that kind of just worsens people's pain, because it's not allowing you to expand your mind. It's actually limiting your thinking. This is why a lot of people say to me, they've told me, oh, when I take antidepressants, I feel numb. It's like I can't even think about life itself because I just feel numb to everything.
Yeah. And when you're depressed, you're already feeling like numb. You're already feeling like nothing matters, and it's just adding to it, right?
Yeah.
And I've had some conversations with people about that, and they said that for them that was exactly what helped them was microdosing. It maybe not in the way you just said, or they explained it in a different way, but it meant the same thing.
Yeah.
Like it definitely opened up their mind to but without even like an effect, right? It didn't feel like it was a something that you're like, ooh, I can feel this now. Like if you were drinking or something else, right? There's no like cognitive like feeling, but it just is like a almost like a yeah, like you said, it feels like if you're depressed or you have anxiety, you're almost cornered in a room, and then you turn around. It's almost like you turn around, and then you're just if it feels more easygoing. Life just feels like maybe you're caring less about things that you used to freak out about, like less trigger and all that kind of thing.
Right. And that's because it's like opening up channels in your brain that were closed before, or stagnant, or there wasn't what's called like chi or vitality running through those transmitters. So this allows you to see things from a different perspective, and to kind of touch base on what's the difference between micro and then going through a profound like deep dose. I mean, all I can do is talk a little bit about my own personal experience where I've tried both. And what I found with like the one time deep experience is that, I mean, it was really intense, and it took me a lot of time to integrate that experience for a little while. And I've also done micro dosing. What I have found for me personally, and this is only me speaking towards my physiology, my body, is the one time deep dose was really effective, and the micro dosing kind of affected me in the opposite way of what I was expecting for me personally.
Yeah, I feel like the microdosing is kind of slightly turning the water on,
Yeah.
and so that your body can like adapt and kind of heal in baby steps.
Yes.
Whereas I guess if you're taking the full psychedelic dose, like it's ready or not, here I come, the full river's flowing. But with that said, if you're going to take a psychedelic dose of whatever, it could be a sacred plant from, you know, South America, Central America, or it could be mushrooms or peyote or whatever. Um, I almost feel like you need to be ready for that river to flow.
Yes.
Because if you're not, if you just take it like, oh, well, I want to go on this trip, like what happens, you may not be prepared for. But I don't know. I've not done it.
No, absolutely. I feel like that's a big part of this conversation too, is like being prepared and knowing who to trust with this kind of situation. Because, for me, in terms of like the deep dose, the deep dive, yeah, I prepared like 6 months before that experience. I prepared my body with the right nutrition and food, water, exercise. Like I almost was preparing as if I was like going to have a child preparing. Like I'm preparing my temple, my body, to be able to like receive something so big. And that was because I wanted to have extraordinary results. So if I wanted to have extraordinary results, I'm going to treat my body as a temple and treat it really, really well, and make sure that I'm taking every step and measure necessary to make sure I have a pleasant experience. Even if I don't exactly know how that experience is going to go, I want to at least prepare to the best of my ability and make sure I have full trust in the teacher or guide before I go into something like this. one of the pieces that I would look out for, that I did look out for, was having somebody who's trauma informed and who was a ceremonialist and came from a lineage and was doing this work for a very long time before just like, picking somebody from a Facebook group who was hosting ceremonies at their houses every Friday night,
Is it hard to find someone that does come from a lineage who's this is their practice, like this is what they grew up with, this is what they know, this is part of their culture? Is it hard to find, one, to find that person, and two, to have that person accept taking you on? Because I feel like that's a relationship, right? Like it's not a one-way relationship. It's both ways, where someone's caring for you and looking out for you and being that tandem for you. So like, how hard is that to find?
I would say it's hard. I kind of want to blatantly say it's like one in a million. It really is. It's like finding that needle in a haystack, because unfortunately, in the kind of world that we're living in, what I'm seeing, again, this is just from personal experience and being involved very deeply in this world and having lots of friends in this kind of space. It's very easy to go get a 3 to 6 month certification and call yourself a ceremonialist or guide. And then you receive the certification, you pay, I'm sure, lots of money. And this isn't speaking towards that person. It's speaking towards the methodology and the structure of 3 to 6 months. And now you're a ceremonialist and you are helping someone through trauma. I mean, if you think about just university and a psychologist, they go through 4 to 8 years in university just to become a psychologist, to be able to guide someone through trauma. So if someone hasn't had extensive, lengthy, trauma-informed information and education and experience and go through the experience themselves, it's very easy for somebody to go to Mexico for 3 months, learn something fun and new and exciting, and then want to bring that back, want to share that, probably most likely from really good intentions of, oh my God, this was life-changing for me. I want to change someone else's life, but they don't realize the harm that's then being done when you actually have someone going through a full-blown trauma trigger or experience or response to that guidance, or understanding the spirit realm, because what you enter is a different realm and dimension when you're on these medicines, and not having the expertise or knowledge of how to help navigate someone through that is honestly very dangerous. And I have unfortunately heard through very good friends of life-threatening experiences, or experiences that has put them in the hospital or in places that were horrible because they went and experienced a retreat somewhere in the jungle without doing any research. And then, they've come back to me, calling me, telling me about their whole experience. And it's like a horror story, like when I hear it, and it's actually happening a lot more often than I'd like to admit.
I mean, at its base level, you have someone who has to understand, one, the plant that they're working with. It is a strong psychedelic. No matter what you're taking, any of these plants are strong psychedelics. And if you don't choose the right plant, or you don't choose the right quantity or the right dose, bad things can happen. And similar to how you put it, the 3-6 month certification. I mean, if we go to a doctor and our doctor's like, here, I'm gonna give you these pills. I took a 3-month online degree. It's cool. Don't worry. I mixed it up in the back. Take
Yeah.
this. We'd be like, are you nuts?
Yeah.
But yet we're not having that same, discernment when we're going to someone who's like, look, I'm giving you a psychedelic. Trust me. I know what I'm giving you and what I'm giving to you. To your point, we really do have to pause and think about what we're doing. Not saying don't do these things. They've helped a lot of people. But to your point, making sure you've got the correct source and guide to help you.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And You know, what people ask me a lot, like a lot of my clients, and I have a lot of really trusted people that will literally come to me to ask me before they go sit in ceremony, which I think is just like so sweet that they would care to ask. And I love that because then I'm like, yes, you're being mindful. This is so good. And again, I don't know everything, but I can at least give you an opinion as someone who is like in this in this world and like does this for their life. Like I can definitely tell you what I'm seeing or what I'm feeling, or maybe what questions to ask, you know, to like get the information that you need to make a like proper decision for yourself that's like educated and intuitive. Because at the end of the day, I'm nobody to tell somebody don't go to that retreat if you're like intuition is full on, it's been synchronistic, you feel good about it, you feel a connection with the place and the person. But what I can say is that there are certain like questions you could ask. And one of the questions I do tell people to ask is, how long have you been a facilitator for? And who did you learn from? Is, you know, does it come from a lineage? Does it come from like a certain place? Did you attend it online, or did you go like somewhere else to study? You know, what is your background in this? Have you held space before? Because I think just having basic facilitator like training, it should be like a must to hold space, just to learn how to hold space. I think it's important to at least know how does one hold space without judgment and with love. And then on top of that, now I'm going to be giving them a very serious like psychedelic experience that's going to blow open their spirit, and I had to know how to navigate that as well. It's like a double whammy, you know?
One thing you mentioned, you talked about, going on these retreats or going to the jungle or wherever. Does location matter? And with that, that also ties in with, the type of people that are getting this kind of training, right? Like, does it seem like it's more legit if you go to some place in another country, or does it matter that much?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. And, you know, I'm going to talk to you about like pure experience. So I have a teacher that studied in Peru and comes from a long lineage of Peruvian shamans studying with medicine there in the jungle, that I learned and have had what's called several diets, which is sitting with that plant and going through plant medicine exclusively with that teacher and receiving rites of passage from that teacher alone in ceremony in Colorado, because that's where I lived for 11 years. 2, living in Argentina, where I am surrounded by what's called curanderos, maestros, maestras, elders, who carry that lineage in their blood, who walk the path, and I've sat in several ceremonies with them now. I would say that my experiences with both is not so much of where I'm at, as much as who I'm with, and them having impeccability and integrity with themselves, with their medicine and their ways of how they teach, and with their prices and how they carry themselves. Because one thing that I really would like to like reveal in this talk is that when you drink medicine with someone, you're not just drinking like the medicine of that plant. You're actually drinking the medicine of that plant plus the energy of the lineage and the person giving it to you. So, for example, if the person giving it to you is someone who isn't impeccable, is out of alignment, maybe doesn't clean their energy often, doesn't care about their diet, doesn't ever exercise, is maybe very stagnant, maybe has poor relationships or poor spiritual hygiene, that transference of energy is in the medicine, and that's what you're consuming as well. And I feel that that's the part that people, I think, are not being cautious of, is who you're actually drinking medicine from is so much more than, oh, I'm drinking this plant. You're actually drinking the medicine of the person it's coming directly from. And that's the part that matters more, I think, than going to Peru or drinking in like the States, for example. It's really about that person and the lineage, and just how they carry and have ceremony themselves. Like that's the part that's really important.
I think the things we've talked about too previously is oftentimes in You see this is not an attack on people, but you see this in the yoga world as well, where people feel if they go to another country and do like a 1 month certification because they went to that country, it doesn't matter who they learned it from, it could be a boutique resort or some retreat certification, that because they went to that country where it may have originated from, they themselves are authentic. They now are that guru or that shaman or that curandera or that, you name it, whatever they're trying to be. And it's almost like an internal validation that, like, well, I went to India, so now I'm a guru. And it's like, I don't think it works like that. But, and I think without realizing it, it trivializes it for those that do spend a long time diving into that world, who give up their, like, they can go from living in a luxury place to now I am living in huts because I really want to be true to this and learn what this is and respect it with that culture. I don't know.
Totally. Totally. I think there is something to being able to experience it directly from like the source as much as possible, and like, the most respectful, authentic way. But just, I wouldn't say that just because you went and did that makes you better than or whatever than like this other person who's been studying and working really hard and truly feels it authentic in their blood. Because like, it's such a hard, like, I love this topic because gosh, there's so many perspectives. There would be a teacher right now that would be telling me, no, you must experience it from its original base. But also, then it kind of dismisses this whole fact of we are truly wise and perfect as we are inside. And if all the wisdom is inside, in ourselves, in our memory, then that means that us walking this path is also allowing us to tap into that memory, into the inner wisdom to know how to do this. And it doesn't always mean having to only go to original sources, though I will agree with like one of my teachers who would say, yes, walking the original path or like going to original sources is what helps you carry it authentically. Yes, I think to a certain extent, and there is something to that. And that is something I have experienced versus in my own experience being in Colorado and studying these plants over there versus being here where the original altars are actually held, meeting with the elders. I think the difference is that the elders are just here. If the elders were in Colorado, well, then no big deal. I'd be learning the same thing. It's like, it's not even about the place. It's about those carrying, that goes back to my original point of carrying the lineage in their blood authentically and like providing that in that authentic, real way, I think is what allows someone to have that original experience, whether they're in Peru or not. But I would say like something else I'd like to like reveal on here is be careful, because you know what also has happened is money has reached a lot of these tribes where these tribes had no money before, and Americans are the ones that like came in, like it was more the Spaniards, the conquistadores came in and stole all their land and stole and did horrendous things to their kids and their tribes and the wives and the husbands and the children. So to think that there isn't vengeance, to think that there isn't something that's tainting some of these places when it comes to money, I mean, that's something that we can't be naive to. We have to understand that these tribes had no money and they're making a massive killing out of it now because these sacred medicines have become so modern. Like they're used now. Like I said something in one of my stories recently where it's like, stop drinking. Like I'm obsessed with Harry Potter. So I said, stop drinking polyjuice potion, as polyjuice being the sacred medicine, like this freaking pumpkin juice on a Saturday morning. Cause like, come on, it needs to be way more respected. But it's like, I say that because it's become that like new age modern world of we drink these to heal ourselves and ascend, instead of visualizing and understanding that this is a tool and it's a path and it's a lineage and it's a way of being and acting and behaving and living, then it just is drinking one time and thinking all your problems are to be solved. So to go back to that of the tribes, they're making a lot of money. So we need to be conscious of that too, because we know what money can do when you've had nothing and all of a sudden you come up on tens and thousands of dollars, right?
Are there any red flags when it comes to that kind of thing? Not just the tribes or anybody that's trying to sell you this practice or this juice or this whatever it is.
Yeah, definitely. Um, you know, in my experience and what my elders, like my elders who actually from the jungle host people, see people, have clinics, all this stuff, what they tell me is I don't like to have ceremonies more than 10 to 15 people, because it's like 8 people is such a good place to be in, because you can accompany, like realistically, let's just think about it. A house filled with 8 energies. All right, that's a good enough energy. You could like feel that the house has a lot of buzz and there's a lot of people. Okay, imagine your small space with 50 people. There's going to be a major difference between energy and buzz and the noise between 8 people to 50, right? So one of the red flags that I've seen and what I've been told through my elders and their experience of doing this is that more than 15 people starts to become, and this could vary. It could be 20, maybe 30 for some people if you have helpers. But let's say you don't have helpers, you're by yourself. 10 to 15 people for one person is a lot. I kind of like to tie it back to preschool. I used to be a preschool teacher, and having more than 8 kids, I wanted to rip my hair out, because it's 8 energies of 8 different little humans needing 8 different, completely different things. And it's a lot. It's a lot to manage. So I think that if you're well equipped, you have the knowledge, the experience, the help, I think having more than, 15, 20 people is fine. But if now we're getting up to numbers like 40 to 100, that's a major red flag. At that point, it's really being done for money reasons, because there really shouldn't be more than 8 to 10 people, and more than 20 if you have help, because then that just becomes an saturation of energy. And how can you really, truly, like thinking about that just logically, how can you accompany 50 people in personal healing at once? Like, it doesn't make sense, you know?
Yeah, I feel like a lot of people that are on that path, they're taking that journey to overcome some kind of trauma or to come through it for some kind of healing, and to be able to be attentive to a massive amount of people going through that kind of healing, because especially if they're taking like a full dose of whatever sacred medicine that they are consuming, that's a lot of people opening up all that unhealed trauma and emotion, all at once. And that to me, just that doesn't sound like a good idea.
No, it's not fun.
I think I've seen that. I think I've seen that in like film, right? In film and TV shows where they're doing this stuff, and that's one thing that I've noticed is that when they're doing these traditions or doing these ceremonies, I've noticed now that you say it, like there's a lot of people usually in those situations, and it just seems like it's way too many. But I mean, that makes sense that would be a red flag, and maybe it's something else, right? There's and when I relate this, it's more like horror stuff, right? And so yeah, it's definitely leading to something negative when there's that many people and they're all um yeah, just the energy, right? Like I feel like I am empathic, and when I'm around too many people, just in general, just being around people, like it's super draining, and it's just a lot. And thinking about taking this sacred medicine on top of all of that, it just sounds like just being overwhelmed, and not in a good way.
Yeah, definitely. And, I do know of someone who did participate in a ceremony of 110 people in Costa Rica, and a lot happened. And she called me and told me about her whole experience. And I had to do a total of like, I think 7 sessions on her just to regulate her nervous system from how much trauma she experienced in that ceremony. Because another piece that's not talked about, and only shamanic community, like shamans, between shamans and maestros speak towards this, is the spirits of those medicines. Most people don't even know what that means. Like, what are the spirits of those medicines? Spirits, it's a portal you're opening. So to think that spirits don't enter, like, spirits enter. There's a lot of things that enter in these spaces that the guide, the shamanic teacher, practitioner, ceremonialist, is knowing how to navigate to make sure that these spirits from these worlds are also receiving healing, that they're integrating them into the ceremony appropriately. And when they're not, when there's so many people and people are releasing things, it's going to affect the masses. I participate in something that's called temazcal. It's called sweat lodge in English, if anybody has heard of that. We participate in these weekly because it's an important ritual and rites of passage for those on this path to be able to connect and come together in community to learn this medicine. But it's the same energy in sweat lodge that's moving in these ceremonies. It's the same thing. You have the ancestors, the grandmothers and grandfathers, the lineage, the spirits that come in through the people guiding sweat lodge to be able to clean the traumas, the energies, the emotional difficulties people are carrying in their bodies, to release them in sweat lodge. And I remember I was in a sweat lodge recently of 22 people. And I was what was considered the medicine woman, which is the person putting all the herbs and medicines onto the rocks, which are volcanic rocks that are heated up to a specific degree. And when you enter sweat lodge, which is like a little hut in the ground, it's known energetically, spiritually to be the womb of the mother, or like the mother earth. So that when you come out, you go through what's called a spiritual rebirth, is what, like, the whole point of what is sweat lodge. And water is put into, like, on top of these rocks to bring steam and heat into these sweat lodges. And so, long story short, I was in a sweat lodge, which is no medicine. We're talking about just pure energy of 22 people. And that was so overwhelming and intense for me. And I had to have integration sessions with my elder after that experience. I told him that I was having nightmares for 3 nights straight after this experience, and all these things were affecting me. And when I was able to talk to him about it, he gave me lots of really reassuring, beautiful words and lots of practices that were so incredibly helpful. But what he told me is, it's insane how potent something like a sweat lodge is, where you're not taking any medicine and you're just releasing energy. Imagine a room filled of 100 people taking plant medicine.
So when you're the medicine woman or a guide helping someone through that journey, do you have to have a foot in each world while you're doing that to be able to guide them on the spiritual side, but also be attentive to the 3D world with, like, the plants and being kind of that tether? Is it kind of a transition person?
Yeah, that's a really, really good question. What I experience, like, being somebody that is a guide, when you do truly become what's called a ceremonialist and you walk with medicine, you yourself have to go through years of healing your own stuff, because you have to be at a certain point in your maturity and your spiritual understanding and knowledge and wisdom to be able to guide someone else through their darkness. Like, if you have never had a relationship before, giving advice to someone who's in relationship, you know what I mean? It's kind of like one of these things that if you haven't experienced it or done your own personal healing, it's hard to truly guide someone. So when you become a medicine woman, you are going through what's called rites of passage. And these rites of passage is that you have to go through a certain level of ceremonies and specific internal work. And when I talk about rituals and ceremonies, I'm talking about what's called the red path, which is things like vision quest, which we can talk about in a second, because that is something that I'm actually going to be participating in like a month. But you go through something what's called Vision Quest. You go through many ceremonies. You go through different rites of passage and understanding, meditation, and just like fundamentals of building your spiritual path that you walk daily and you work daily. And what I've seen is that this path opens you up to the spiritual realm more and more each time. The more you like are working in it, the more you're setting your own intentions, the more you like are learning from elders, you start to have access. The whole point is like walking this path gives you access to that spiritual realm through like energetic codes through the teachers and experiences that you have yourself that allows you to like maneuver and navigate these realms spiritually while also having the understanding of, okay, this person's having like a seizure. I can speak to a personal experience in a sweat lodge where I saw someone go through what's called a seizure, totally freaking out in the Temascal because they had an experience, which we later spoke to her, and she told the story of, oh my God, I know on the outside it looked like I was having a like seizure, but really I was going through the memory of my mother's womb and what it was like to come out of her womb. And I had these flashbacks and experiences of like what my birth story was. And I feel like I was healing something in that, even if I don't totally know what that was. And it was insane because this person actually has like a physical illness that she doesn't have anymore from going through that sweat lodge. So it's crazy.
That's going to be scary for you as you're experiencing this because you're learning, right?
Yes.
I'm sure the elders have seen this, and so they're a little bit less, like shaken by stuff like that because they've seen so much. But like you're learning, you're on your rite of passage, and so that's probably one of them. Like here's a scenario that can happen.
Yes. It's so much that way. It's kind of like someone throws you in the wilderness and they're like, all right, guys, we're going to go camping and make everything from scratch for 3 weeks and hopefully nothing happens. And then, I don't know, you fall on a branch and you like get sliced on your ankle and you're like, oh my God, what do I do? And, it's like these kinds of experiences of like, you're kind of like, you're thrown into it, you're experience it, you're learning, you're in it to like evaluate what's happening and like see it from this perspective of, oh my God, this person's literally looking like they're going through seizures, but they're having a spiritual experience and release. And obviously like in our lineage and with the people we have a paramedic and we have someone who's a firefighter who also tends to the fire in Temascal. So like, I don't know if that was done on purpose or if that's just how it was aligned for us, but we are lucky that we have somebody that like knows about that and is walking their own spiritual path. So the fact that they didn't freak out, that they were able to handle the situation right away, like they helped her right away. She went through that experience and grew so much from it, changed so much from it. And now she comes back like pretty often. I see her coming back because it was so life-changing for her. Like, that's amazing. And that's the power and potency of these medicines. That's why it can't be taken for granted or taken lightly because it's really powerful stuff. And we have to know how to have a lot of humility, reverence, and respect for what's happening and not just think that we know it all,
You made a really good point on the inverse of something you said earlier, and it keeps kind of sticking with me as you talk about these experiences and guiding people, is that you mentioned when you're taking the plant medicine from somebody, you're taking their energy and their lineage as well. And the inverse of that is you have to wonder with the people that are just like shuffling in all of these different people, right? Like you too can come for $99.99 and get your psychedelic trip, that commodification that they are giving their energy and lineage to each and every one of these people. And I
Yeah.
have to wonder, how does that impact the healer and the lineage with that being just connections given out so like so consistently.
Totally. And like BJ asked earlier, what are the red flags? And I know I mentioned one of like the big ones that I didn't mention any others, but I mentioned like kind of a big one that people ask me is that like when there's so many people, like that is a red flag. And two, another red flag would be exactly what you're already intuitively, like to me, Ashley, like you're very intuitive because you're like recognizing that, and I'm like, yes, I'm so glad she recognized that, because not everybody does, and that's okay. But there is something to be like talked about in terms of just giving away these sacred, like, honestly, these things are secret. They've been hidden knowledge for so long, and I am a believer that this hidden sacred knowledge needs to come out now in the world, because gosh, the world needs healing more than ever in this time. But I don't think that it should just be given out like pieces of bread to anybody who's hungry, because then what happens is it loses a lot of its magic, and people in general who maybe don't understand what it means to be receiving medicine from a lineage or learning from a lineage don't hold respect in the same way as maybe somebody who understands what that means. And so they could speak about it in a way that dishonors the lineage. They could just be talking about it with whoever and saying specific things that could lead to investigations or very negative ramifications for the holder of ceremony. And the other part is that is a red flag, because I truly believe that someone needs to be in a specific state of mind and being before they come to ceremony. So from my experience, the teachers I'm surrounded by do 2 interviews. It's 2 full interviews before they even give you a yes or no, and they go through your medications, your history, if you've ever had a post-traumatic stress like situation in your life, if you've ever gone through something traumatic, they want to know all the details. Like I remember with my teacher from who comes from Peru, she asked me, I remember my intake with her was insane. It was 4 hours long. I was like, oh my God, this is the longest intake I've ever experienced in my whole life. Why is it 4 hours? But it was 4 hours. That's how long the session was, to be able to go through my entire history, because she wanted to be so well equipped to understand, who is Dominique? What has she experienced? Because all those things come out in these medicines. And she wanted to be well prepared for receiving me, especially if I'm going into private ceremony with her. Like I wasn't even with other people. So yeah, I think that that's a red flag. And again, I think it's being disrespected and maybe done for other purposes, whether it's like ego inflation or it's like fame or money. It's something to definitely think about and look out for, because I do believe that not just anyone should be allowed to come into these spaces. Again, because it could be very detrimental to your psyche if you're not like in a good state of being, or at least well enough. That doesn't mean you don't have traumas. No, clearly, like you want to come to this when you're ready to like really dive into stuff. But this, I'm just talking that you're not like have addictions, that you're not on like heavy medications every single day that are like life-saving, that kind of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned addiction, and I've actually seen a lot of users online. That sounded weird. I've seen a lot of like social media creators online speaking to microdosing and how it helps them break addiction. And when it comes to sacred medicine, whether it's microdosing or full dose, is that something that for someone who has ongoing addiction or very present mental illness, whether it's very active depression or like crippling depression, and things like that nature, is that something where someone would want to just handle with sacred medicine alone, or want to use with another modality, like to help with the healing?
Yeah, I love that you asked this. So there is a medicine for that that is better than others, that is known to have so much clinical studies for addiction, and that's kambo. Kambo is a ceremony you go through with frog medicine, and that is specifically known to help with addiction. And that is something I experienced. Now, I didn't go for addiction. I went for completely different reasons, but I did go through several ceremonies of combo facilitation with someone that really helped me so much with my health. I can't speak highly enough of that medicine because I truly believe that it partially saved my life and really helped me with just ailments I was going through that doctors couldn't help me with. So that's one I would definitely recommend for somebody that is maybe using or trying to get off. In terms of the other sacred plant medicines, it works in your body in a different way. It works on the psyche, and combo works more on your physiology. There is no psychedelic reaction, although that doesn't mean someone can't go into a deep state of internal meditation maybe with it, that they experience psychedelic like things, but there is no psychoactive ingredients in that medicine the way that there are with the other sacred plants. And so that's why you want to take more precaution with the other plants. And I would highly recommend that if you are going to sit in ceremony and maybe it has helped you with addiction, that's amazing. And I would make sure too that you're maybe working with somebody else, like a psychologist, or going through a different avenue of healing in combination to sacred plants if you want to go more of a holistic route.
Now, combo is that the frog poison?
Yes. It comes from the glands.
Okay. So don't do it on your own, friends. Just like anything else in sacred medicine, go with people that have actually studied and worked with us more than 3 months.
Yes, please. More than 3 months, more than 6 months, please. I don't want to keep.
That's one question I actually had for you, and I'm glad you guys are talking about it now. Where these sacred medicines, not all of them have that psychoactive element to them, and something that I think a lot of people might be interested in, just because, I myself, I might be a little bit hesitant to go to the psychoactive stuff because maybe you're not ready for it, right? And I
Yeah.
think maybe that's a step that people can take, right? And again, it depends on what they're suffering with, I guess, as well.
Totally. And, I did speak with my elder today, and I did get permission to name him. His name is Arturo Pie Grande, and he is born and raised in Ecuador, and he is a shaman and maestro and teacher and elder from the jungle there, who leads many different types of rites of passage. And he comes from a whole long line of lineage of teachers and maestros that are now in spirit. But he comes walking about, he told me 34 years that he's been walking this path. And something he did tell me today that he wanted me to share is, if you're somebody that's curious and doesn't know where to start, and you're like, I don't know, maybe do that one day, or where can I start if I'm an empath, BJ? Like you're saying, I'm someone sensitive and I'm kind of nervous to enter a setting like that. Where can you start? And the best thing that I could tell you that he told me is, start with plant teachers that are not psychedelic, sacred medicine. Start with plant teachers, because every single plant has wisdom, has a spirit, and has something to teach you. So maybe you start with planting some plants in your garden, like rue. I can tell you some medicines that they use. So that's rue and sage and rosemary, lavender, tobacco. These are plants that are used a lot in ceremony and in rites of passage and just in general. And maybe where someone can start is to plant some of these and start cultivating a relationship with them. Maybe you make what's called agua florida. We make a joke and we call it shaman's water. But maybe you start with making tinctures of these plants and you use this shaman juice or shaman water in your house or on yourself, just so that you can start cultivating like a relationship with plants in general, because they're all teachers and they all have something to teach you and bring you, and they all are healing. And that could be a good place to start, is just understanding the plant realm in general before maybe like moving on to something more intense.
Yeah, thank you. I think that's a great
Hmm.
idea because, yeah, I mean, personally, it's like it sounds like such a big leap, right? With all the things that you go into, it just seems. I mean, obviously, you're going to other places. You're conversing with these spirits. Your body can convulse. You can go into these states of being that maybe are very very foreign, but also like intimidating.
Totally.
But again, I guess also you're going into it, you also have to go in the right state of mind that you're there to heal, to get help, to grow, to become maybe a better version of yourself that you just haven't discovered yet, right?
Totally. Totally. One thing that's said a lot in our path is we're here to learn. That's it. We're always learning, and it's like you could be, and my teacher, I laugh because it's seriously so cute and so humble, and he truly means it. He's been walking this 35 years, right? Like I mentioned, and every ceremony I've ever sat with him in, he goes, "This is my first time taking this plant." And like I remember the first time he said that, I was like so confused. I was like, "What?" But then I started understanding that what he meant is, this is the first experience of a new experience. This isn't my first time with this plant, but this is a new experience. So it's my first time in this experience with you all. And he really has this attitude that he carries that like with everything he does, because it like comes out of his pores, that even though he's an elder and someone people like bow down to and revere and like put on a pedestal, he always says like, I'm just a human. I'm a human like anybody else. And yes, I have this whole path ahead of me, but I'm learning every single day. And if we can humble ourselves every day to learn something new, then that's like what life is about, because then we're always learning, we're always accumulating knowledge, we're always savoring the moment and like expanding ourselves, instead of stopping our learning and thinking, okay, we don't need to learn anything anymore because we know it all, or, like that'll start inflating your ego over time. So he just says like, if there's something you can learn every single day, do that. So maybe it's like, you want to learn more about plants, get a book, read on it, cultivate some plants outside in your backyard, start smudging yourself or playing with these things and like learning about yourself in with these plants. And then, from there, your relationship will build with them and will carry you on to the bigger head honchos, so to speak, of those like big medicines. And you won't feel as intimidated if you have like that understanding and cultivation with the plant, that you're here to learn and heal, and it's a personal journey.
I'd like to make it known that I can't keep plants alive, except except for two types. I can grow the heck out of aloe plants. I
Oh,
don't know
good.
why. And succulents. Anything else?
Oh, is it because they don't need that much water, Ashley?
I don't know.
You got called out.
I'm like, is it because they're the easiest ones? I'm just playing.
I don't know though, because I feel like you have to water them enough.
No, you do.
It might be.
No,
I have
don't
no
feel
idea.
bad. Don't feel bad.
I do love aloe plants. I will say that. I love to grow aloe plants. But yeah, I don't know. I love the idea of plant medicine. I love the idea of like the healing that is more on a, holistic level. And maybe that's partially because I grew up with my grandmother, who she very much was like curandera, all of the teas and salves and everything she did was plant-based. My grandma's got the green thumb. It skipped me. So it's interesting. Have you ever drinking aloe tea? It's not tasty, but
I
it does
actually
the
have
trick.
not. I have not. I've only put it on like external.
It's not tasty.
I can
But
imagine.
it is effective.
Yes, totally. Plants are effective.
I do love that you're making it, you are speaking to how accessible it can be and how you are encouraging people to be, intuitive, that you don't have to go to Peru to tap into what's inside of you and to know what's within your truth and to work with the earth in your backyard. We've all got soil. It's just, where is it and how can we integrate with it? And I do love that, because I feel like some people think, well, I don't have $3,000 and I can't take 2 months off to go live in Peru, or I can't, go do any of those things because it's not accessible to me. And I love that you're pulling it back and you're like, it doesn't have to be that complicated. You can
Yes.
connect with the earth. You can connect with yourself without ever leaving your house.
Yes. 100%. I think people, I know, like, put myself in this too in the past, like, and there are moments I catch myself, like, we look so much on the external. We think like the problem is outside of us when it's really not. It's always a reflection of what's going on inside. And, I do, for my Toltec shamanism that I've talked about on this podcast, that shaman does not touch plant medicine, doesn't touch plants, period. It's all dream work, energy work, and using like obsidian tools and your own energy and your own affirmations, like fully 100%. So what I do want to say on here is, you don't need plant medicine to ascend, to get enlightened, to fix all your problems. Is it a tool? Is it so helpful? Is it beautiful? Is it an experience you'll never forget, unlike anything else? Yes. Is it going to help you? Yes. And are you going to receive value from it? Absolutely. But is it absolutely 100% necessary to receive healing? No. There's so many other avenues, and that's not the only way. It's just a way to be able to access the deeper parts of yourself you're maybe struggling being able to like connect with, but it's not the only thing in the world, and it's not the only way, because you're right. If you are somebody that is seeking that or wanting that experience, what we have to understand that is that the sacred medicines have a spirit, just like all the other plants have a spirit, like anything else. And I would say it's important to cultivate some kind of relationship with other plants first before moving on to that, if you're really interested in going in this avenue. Otherwise, then you're just kind of seeking a means to an end, and it feels more like for escapism, or because you want the answers now and not because you want to build a relationship.
I think the biggest thing for me is always, I forget everything we need, we have inside of us.
Yeah.
And so, something that I'm called out, this idea of escapism. It's like I have to go out and learn 50,000 modality just so I can tap into something, because I don't know how to do it within myself, or because I don't believe I can do it within myself. And I think
Yeah.
without having that belief in yourself, you, no matter what modality you reach out to, it's mm, someone's going to kick me for saying this, I'm sure, but it's not going to happen if you don't believe in yourself first. And
Yeah.
um, it's amazing to see everyone's journeys and how they are finding that connection, whether it's to the earth or to plants. And I love watching your journey.
Oh,
Like, it has been just amazing watching your journey.
thank you
I sound
so
creepy.
much. I
I
really
stalk
appreciate it.
you.
I love it. I stalk you. No, I love it. Stalk away, please. No, I really appreciate that. Thank you for seeing me and being a part of this journey, because there are, like, a few people have like said that to me, and it makes me smile so much, because I'm like, thank you, because you're a part of this too. Like, you're a part of it too. There's one day when you guys come out here and see me, or I'm hosting a ceremony in the future, you guys have been alongside my journey, and that feels really special. But I totally agree that it is belief in yourself. I think that that's just something everybody could work on in general. And like, having any kind of spiritual path is good enough. It doesn't need to be plant medicine. It could be meditation, because even simple practices like breath work and meditation can help you access parts like of yourself that you're struggling with. But sometimes people in their mind think, I need this big whole experience to go there, when it may not actually be the truth. It really may not. But again, it's just they're different tools and avenues of healing.
Yeah, I feel like I'm always being told, and John can vouch for this. You got to connect to your ancestors. You got to open up to your spirit guides. And I'm like, I don't know how. Well, maybe if I do this, or I read that, or I don't know. And
Hug a tree.
I hug a tree. Someone
Yes.
actually told me that. Go outside and hug a tree, girl. And I'm like, okay, but I still don't connect. So
Oh, no, I love that.
I'm my own block.
Well, I mean, if there's something I can tell you is build an ancestor's altar. Build an altar in your home that has pictures of your ancestors who you would like to connect with, and add your own touch to it. It could have herbs, plants. I recommend that it has all the elements on the altar. That is always really nice and special. There is a right way to like do this in terms of lineage speaking, of like the way it's been done for so long. But honestly, I feel intention is everything. And if you build like an ancestor's altar in your home, that's a really good place to kind of start, just learning to connect and talk to them.
If you build it, they will come.
They
No,
will
but
come.
really, I don't. This is gonna sound awful, but I don't know my ancestors. The oldest for me that I can go back is like my grandmother, but she's still alive, and I want to keep it that way. So I really, and I think that's why I struggle when people talk about connecting to my ancestors. I don't feel connected because I don't know them, and I think, like, for me, I'm like, well, does it have to be my ancestors? Because I don't know them, but maybe that's part of my journey, figuring out who they are.
Maybe in that case, I would, I don't know, have some conversations with your grandma and maybe like press record on the phone and record everything that woman has to say that she can remember from her life, would be one way.
I've done it.
Great.
I
And then
have, like, I
that's
have so
awesome.
many of her
That's good.
stories.
Like, get her stories, get her recipes, get names, because names are important. Like, if you have some names, even if you don't know them, just having some names is great because you have some sort of reference. And maybe you ask your well ancestors. We want to like make sure we connect with what we know we want to connect with, not just call anything in, but call on our well ancestors to come into our dreams and have conversations with them that way. You'll be pretty amazed at like what could come through in just setting an intention like that before bed.
Okay, I'll try
Yeah,
that.
try it out. I've heard some really wild, fun things. And another little like tool and fun thing is, if you want to learn how to remember your dreams and connect with ancestors in your dream, have a cup of water by your bedside. Because it's said, like the ancient story is that the water, because we're made of water and our dreams are the element of water, it helps capture the dream in the water so it connects with you while you're sleeping.
You taking notes,
I
BJ?
am taking lots of notes. The dream.
I was gonna
I
say,
know
yeah.
we're getting low on time, but like the dream world stuff, like I'm all about it. Like there's so many things that I want to talk about with in regards to that specific thing, and ancestors and stuff. And I've been talking about a dream I had recently. It was on Dia de los Muertos. About I went through that whole cycle. I went to the land of the dead and went up to heaven and came back. And then I came back to my body. It took me a good minute to figure out who I was and where I was. And yeah, it was nuts. So yeah, and all I felt was just love, and just it was overwhelming. It was so overwhelming because it was a emotional and spiritual sensation and not a mental one, which when you come back to your body, it felt very my mental side was trying to figure out what everything was going what that was all about. So
Yeah. Yeah. Um, Well, it's so funny that you might mention that. So I've actually been straight up told by my teacher, who is Toltec. He lives in Mexico City. So Dia de los Muertos is something that, like, I'm not Mexican, I'm Cuban, but it is a tradition that I love so much. It's so beautiful. And I do practice that because he is one of the first teachers that I found when it comes to anything like shamanic. And something that he told me, I actually remember it straight up from a conversation I had with him, was he said, "Yeah, when the dreams, when you visit the Mictlan, Mictlan is the world of the dead, the
Hmm.
place of the ancestors, is because you have been called forward by your ancestors to carry their lineage forward. It's like this rites of passage and initiation that happens in your dreams, where you get to be involved with the ancestors and be in the land of the dead, which also, like, in terms of powers, this is how he said it. His words were, it means you have spiritual powers to share with the world. And it's about starting to learn what those are, because that means that you're being given direction, that it's time to start working on that and revealing that to others so you could help others with healing. So it's like he talks about being a magician, which means somebody that can, like, manipulate the elements and has magical powers, basically. It's like what he told me.
You're a wizard, Harry.
That actually makes a lot of sense because in the dream, they gave me a message that I remember clearly. They're like, just, be kind, spread kindness, and if people don't know how to do that, like, teach them, which I thought was really,
Wow.
yeah. And I'm like, I'm not. I mean, I'm a all right kind person. I'm not like, I'm not the kindest person in the world, but I'm like, I guess, like, okay. So yeah, it was very interesting.
No, no. That means you're so kind. That means that you have a pure soul. It's a soul that has kindness at its core. So it's not even about personality traits. Like, hey, I'm a kind person, I think. It's like, no, you at your core and your essence are good, are pure, are of good nature, of good essence, and are kind. And that message to me feels very clear, for sure. Like, something to investigate, because they're giving
Yeah.
you direction and instruction.
Yeah, and that's the question, like, where do I go from here, right? So, I'm excited to find out.
Absolutely. I think with time and maybe setting some intentions in the dreams, kind of like how I said, put that cup of water next to your bed, set some intentions, speak them out loud while you're in bed before you go to sleep. This can help.
That is so funny that you say water next to my bed because I feel like whenever I do have water next to my bed, which is a lot, I do remember my dreams, and yeah, it's they're kind of intense, and I didn't realize that that was even a thing. So I
Yeah.
am taking notes, Ashley.
Perfect. Perfect.
I think for you too, as well, BJ, is that because the question is, okay, now what do I do with that? How do I like teach kindness? And I think we're always told and taught that the best way to teach is to lead by example. So I think even if you just start outwardly showing actions of kindness, that in and of itself is already spreading that message. I think people are oftentimes inspired when they see other people doing things of kindness, whether it's service to the community, service to however you view that, like what that means to you and your truth, that people see that, they feel the authenticity of it, and
Hmm.
then it oftentimes ripples out, it spirals um, for others to follow.
Totally. I think sometimes just being who you are can be really naturally healing to someone else, and you don't even have to do or really say anything. It's just having your presence there makes a difference.
Just say, I have arrived. Boom, baby. Now, you mentioned Vision Quest,
Oh,
Dominique.
yeah.
What, and you wanted to speak to that. What were your thoughts? I know that's very sacred, so I don't want to ask any questions. I'd
Yeah,
rather let you lead that discussion.
thank you. Yeah, there's a lot I have not been given permission to say, because it will take away the magical essence of what it is, and for people to naturally be guided to that. But What I can say to that is it is a 4-year commitment, with each year being more days that you're in, what is it called? Fasting. That you are fasting in nature, but it is not just any kind of fasting. You are in spirit form and you're fasting from everything: water, food, and being able to speak or be next to anyone or speak to anyone, while being very, very securely guided, very well supported throughout this entire experience, with many, 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 many people holding space for those going up on their days. And then just knowing, by the way, for anybody that like their eyes went 4 days, no food, no water, on year 2, 3, and 4, which are 7, 9, and 13 days, you are given sustenance on very specific days. I can't say anymore, but you are given sustenance on specific days, obviously, to keep your physical body healthy and you're well. And, you know, they always recommend to see a doctor before you go and do something like this if you're unsure of your health. There's always paramedics, usually, that are like there if anything were to happen. If you're on medication, obviously, this is something that's very, very, very discussed, like appropriately, with the leaders of this whole experience. At least in my lineage, I cannot speak for others, because this is done in different parts of the world with several different lineages, and I personally can't speak about those because I don't know their protocols, but I know that in the way that we're doing it, it feels really safe and it just feels really impeccable and well done. And the whole point of this fast, like, why would you go find a vision and be planted by a tree and be in quiet contemplation with nothing, is because the whole point, like Aboriginal cultures and what fasting can provide someone, is that there are no distractions, and it allows you to find your soul. It allows you to find yourself and truly be confronted with your own mind, with your own self. And through this experience, from what I've heard, it is incredibly hard, very healing, very beautiful. And for some people, it's been really painful. And for others, it's been glorious. Like one person told me who did, they accomplished 3 years. They said, man, I didn't ever want to come down from that mountain, because I was like, I didn't have to deal with my kids and my husband and my
Oh my God.
clients. And it was like, they're like, I didn't want to ever come down from that mountain, because I was so at peace. I've never found such stillness and peace before in my life until I had this kind of experience. So, this is a rites of passage to be able to walk with sacred medicine and lead it and facilitate it in a really impeccable, great way, with this respect, because each year holds a different frequency. So I can speak to my experience. The first year is the door of humility, which is learning how to go without water and food for these days, because the elders tell you that until you've experienced what it's like to not have food and water, you don't truly appreciate it. And so when you actually feel not having it, what that actually looks like, feels like, then you can actually start respecting it and appreciating the abundance the planet has. So it's a way to connect with nature and yourself in a very, very deep ceremonial way. And lastly, what I want to say about that experience is that it's open to anyone. So it's not just for somebody kind of like in the shamanic realm. It's for somebody that truly wants to be with themselves and find themselves. So you could have like a different path that could be yoga and meditation, and go through these 4 years, or go through 1 year if that's what you truly want to do. But if you're somebody that wants to walk with medicine with integrity, you go through all 4 years before you're given any kind of permission or blessings from the elders to take the next step forward on your journey, on what you're looking for, what you want to serve in the future.
You made a really good point that I would like to maybe go into a little further is you said that your friend was like, I never want to come down from the mountain. And I feel like maybe in the past with these vision quests and walking with medicine, it was a little easier to stay on your path because there wasn't so much distraction. For those that are going on this journey, is it difficult to find that balance of staying on the path and maintaining what you found in that vision quest while still having to live in the modern era of social media and technology and television and everything like that?
Man, you took the words out of my mouth because this is a conversation I had recently, where I actually told somebody, I'm learning all of this. How do I hold integrity on social media, doing the work I do, being somebody like, I don't consider myself a public figure, but somebody who's like working towards becoming more public with her work and to make an impact in people's life. That's natural, being somebody where the spotlight is on in social media or gatherings. I actually said to her, I was like, how the heck do I walk this path and do that? And she said to me, when you figure it out, let me know. Because she's been on someone on this path. Literally, she's been someone on this path for 8 years. And she's like, when you figure it out, let me know, because I too am trying to find that balance of how do I hold the integrity of everything I'm learning and receiving and take it to my everyday life, take it to my home, to my kids, I don't have children, I have fur children, but it's like, take it to my kids, take it to my family, my relationships. And that is the goal. The goal is balance. It's always finding equilibrium in everything you do as much as possible, is bringing these teachings in and living them in your everyday life. And no, it's not easy. And no, not everyone does it. And yes, there are lots of people that follow the protocol, 4 years vision quest, lots of ceremonies, yada, 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 and don't actually walk the path, meaning they live and take action on what they're learning every single day. And yeah, it is really difficult because there are so many interferences in life. And I think the purpose of things like these rites of passage that we're talking about is to help you with that balance, right? It's like every day you're in your livelihood of your day. Well, then you have these experiences that are intense to help you remember all of that and to continuously in your life integrate it. I think it's about integration as much as possible, and having these experiences that you can remember and go through so that you can bring that back into your daily life and constantly walk this path of this balance. But it's hard. I'm not going to lie. It is hard.
I guess if it were easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's being mindful. It's like truly living consciously and with mindfulness 24/7. Yeah.
Do you ever just want to sit on the couch and be like, chips and dip and chocolate cookies?
Yeah, and I totally do. I'm not gonna lie. I totally do. I totally do that. And I totally do that. I really do. And, I think at the end of the day, I will just reiterate what my taita always says to me is, you're a human. I'm a human. We're all human. And we're trying to figure out this human experience. And every day we're learning. And that's what that is. So I think it's give yourself some grace to be able to sit on the couch and cry and have ice cream once in a while. There's nothing wrong with that.
I like to tell myself, I'm just testing myself to make sure I can still get back up. It's good. I'm good.
Yeah, no, totally. And, a brother of mine, a spiritual brother of mine on this path always says, spiritual warriors, man, that's what we are. We're spiritual warriors and we're humans at the same time. And that's what makes the path hard is yeah, you have to dedicate. I think one question somebody asked me one time, and I've gotten it often, is how much time do you put into this? And the answer is 24/7. Every day, every single day, it's a commitment. Each day that you arise is a new day to give gratitude for and to remember the elements and remember everything you've learned in everything you do. So it's it is a commitment and a dedication. It is a path you walk, not a certification you take for 6 months.
And you too can be a shaman for $99.99.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
This has been a really awesome conversation, and I always love having you on. I feel like if you're open to it, we'd love to have you back on to talk about dreams. I know BJ really wants to get deeper into that world, so, and I
Please.
always love being in that world.
Absolutely. I'd be happy.
Do we have any final thoughts before we wrap it up?
I just want to say thank you for coming on, and it's just so enlightening just to listen to you, and it's you could just tell just the kind of energy, the kind of just grounded you feel like it just comes out of you. It's nice. It just feels like you're coming from a space that's just I don't know how to describe it. Just very genuine and friendly and it's not you're not selling anything.
Yeah.
You know, and you know, and that and some people do that, and it's I think getting into the depths of what it's all about is important, and I think you know we could talk for hours and hours about this and still have things to talk about, and yeah, I'm just excited for more.
Oh.
I would like to say that was her energy before she even started on this. Although I think you were always on this path, but when I first met you, I was just like, I love your energy. Your energy is amazing, and you're kind. You exude loving, grounding, calming, just amazing.
Thank you. No, wow. Thank you so much. I really take that to the heart, really, really deeply. So thank you. I'm so appreciative. I'm so grateful to be here. And yeah, that means a lot to me because I have really worked it, BJ, into my practical everyday life because I feel that if it's not grounded and in this world, then it's really not something that people can really talk to or access or know how to integrate in their life when it's these people speak about these kinds of topics in this way that's like so abstract, and it almost feels like only special people can access these things, and it's just not the reality. Like, we all are special, we all have gifts, we're all like capable and have so much potential for so much, and we're all psychic and have spiritual abilities and gifts and magic, and like that's what I want to be able to spread to other people is like this joy, this love, this groundedness that you guys are feeling. You guys also have that and are that. So thank you so much for having me on here today. It felt like a really special topic and I just really appreciate it.
See, we're not all muggles. No,
No, not at all. Not at all.
Not unless you want to be.
Not unless
If you want to be,
that's okay too. Muggles are important too.
Yes, they are.
Yes.
Everybody. All right, John Thomas.
All right. Yes, thank you again for coming on. I can sit and listen to you for hours and hours and hours and just take it all in, and I love it. So I can't wait to have you back for a third time, probably on the 27th of some month again.
That's good.
I mean, it just works out that way, apparently, which is amazing. I love that. But yeah.
How fortuitous.
Yeah. So wild. I'm going to make a note of that. I'm totally going to say that on my social media and be like, guys, yes, this is why, just because of that, you should tune into this conversation. There is some stuff here.
Exactly.
Yeah. It was magical before it started.
Yes. Oh, thank you guys so much.
Yes.
Thank you truly.
Yes.
I so appreciate you guys all. Like, I love you all as humans too. And I wish I was in Colorado so I could see you guys in person, but maybe one of these days when I come back and visit.
Yes.
I'm gonna come to Argentina.
Yes, come. You're welcome anytime.
Yes. All right. And thank you to all of our listeners for listening to this episode of 3Haunted Podcast with your host. I'm John Thomas.
I am Ashley Lunar Goddess.
And I'm BJ Segura.
Segura que sí.
BJ, you're sure? Oh, I love that.
Yes. If you have any questions, comments, episode suggestions, please feel free to let us know. Email us at 300podcast@gmail.com. And if you haven't done so already, please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our social media. You don't want to miss amazing moments and guests like Miss Dominique here.
Until next time.